Hi, in this video I'll show you how to create the perfect terrarium enclosure for long-tailed salamanders. These unique amphibians have some specific needs, so I'll guide you through selecting the right materials to set up the ideal habitat. So let's get started and bring a little piece of nature into your home. Eastern long-tailed salamanders are slender, vibrant amphibians found in the eastern United States, particularly in the Appalachian region. They thrive in humid forested environments and are often discovered under rocks and decaying logs near caves, streams, and springs. Their diet mainly consists of small invertebrates like insects and worms. These salamanders reproduce in the spring after mating through a process known as implexus. Females lay clusters of eggs in ponds and creeks, which hatch into aquatic larvae that undergo metamorphosis into terrestrial adults over several months to a couple of years. They typically live around 10 to 15 years in the wild. These salamanders are characterized by strikingly long tails, which can be up to twice the length of their bodies. They display bright orange or yellow coloration adorned with dark irregular spots or bars along their backs and sides. Like some lizards, they can regenerate their tails if lost to a predator. But it's important to note that lizards are reptiles, while salamanders are amphibians. They have merely converged on a similar self-defense mechanism. Eastern long-tailed salamanders are lungless and rely on their skin for respiration, a process known as cutaneous respiration. Their permeable skin allows them to absorb water and oxygen, making them important indicators of environmental health. Because they are so sensitive to changes in their habitat, a decline in their population often signals issues such as pollution or habitat loss. While long-tailed salamanders currently have stable populations, they face risk from habitat destruction, pollution, climate change, and disease. Therefore, forest conservation is essential for their survival. A terrarium is a miniature ecosystem that can house both plants and small animals. Keeping amphibians in a terrarium offers benefits like simulating their natural habitat and requiring low maintenance. Additionally, live plants help regulate humidity, filter the air, and offer hiding spots that creates a balanced environment that enhances the well-being of the animals. First things first, I got an 8x8 by 12 inch ReptiZoo aquarium. You can go bigger, but don't go any smaller. These salamanders are small, so I can get away with something this big, but I recommend you get something with more horizontal space as opposed to the more vertical style of this one. However, I'm going to add 2 different levels to this terrarium, so they'll have twice as much space. I then clean the aquarium with a cloth and distilled water. Make sure you don't use any harsh chemicals because these salamanders can absorb them through their skin. Next, add small rocks and pebbles as a drainage layer. Any extra water will be collected here. As the plants grow roots, they'll be able to reach this area and be able to water themselves. I then added some sand and vermiculite as a barrier between the soil and the drainage layer. I then added plastic caves for a fish aquarium that the salamanders will be able to hide in. Since they're plastic, they'll stay strong and won't decompose. Pushing the front entrance of the cave against the glass will allow me to observe the salamanders once it's complete. I then added a thin layer of wood chips to help as a barrier between the soil and drainage layer, and to help feed the decomposers and keep the soil bioactive. I then added more hiding spots for the salamanders in their prey using cork bark. Additionally, these pieces of wood will help block the other entrances of the cave to prevent dirt from filling them when it's time to add soil. Next, I mix up some cocoa fiber by soaking compressed bricks of it in water until they expand. I then add topsoil to this to make a soil that both retains moisture from the cocoa fiber, but also has the nutrient content and microbial activity of the topsoil. Combining these two will also improve soil structure and the pH balance. I then add soil into the tank and around the caves, careful not to spill dirt into the plastic logs. Next comes the fun part. It's time to add plants. I chose species that wouldn't get too large and would survive in the damp soil like ivy, spider plants, and lucky bamboo. I also made a poor decision to add a type of succulent thinking it could survive the damp climate only for it to die a few weeks later, so rip little homie. When I plant them, I try to carefully break up the root ball without damaging the roots. It's important to do this because it encourages healthy root growth, allowing the plant to spread its roots and access nutrients and water more effectively. It's also important to remove most of the old soil that the plant came with because it might contain fertilizers that can harm the sensitive skin of the salamanders. After adding more soil, things are starting to look almost finished. But I'm not finished until I add some moss. The moss will help with humidity and serve as a hiding place for the animals. Plus, it looks nice. After adding some dead leaves, sticks, and small flat stones, we're finally finished building this terrarium. Now all that's left is to add its occupants. First, we gotta add the cleanup crew and pray for the salamanders. These will decompose the waste from the salamanders, including their poop and uneaten food. Worms, springtails, and isopods, also known as roly-polies, pillbugs, woodlouse, sowbugs, slaters, potato bugs, scabs, beans, piggly wigglies, organic quaaludes, garden bed poppers, and gooby dirt munchers, will break down organic matter and release nutrients while also helping aerate the soil. The salamanders will also eat the isopods in addition to small crickets and mealworms. When adding these insects into the environment, it's important not to add too many, because they may begin to overwhelm your salamanders and can even kill them. Finally, it's time to add the salamanders. Now, in a perfect world, you want to wait a couple days to even a couple weeks before adding the animals. This lets the plants settle and root, that way the animals won't damage them or knock them over, but because these salamanders are so small, that wasn't really a problem. You'll also notice a third salamander in here. That is a redback salamander, although this one is a silverback variety. This little guy lived in here for a couple months before getting his own home. So this setup is pretty much good for any type of small lungless salamander, but be sure to do your research. I've had this terrarium for about 2 years, and in that time the salamanders have been doing great. They mostly stay in the caves, but I occasionally see them on the surface during the night. When keeping animals, especially non-domesticated animals, it's important to remember that you're really only keeping them for your own amusement, and that they might not want to be owned. That's why I personally don't see the point of getting exotic pets like this, unless you can give them a quality of life that matches or surpasses what they would have had in the wild. I also think that most amphibians and reptiles don't really like human interaction and shouldn't be petted, picked up, or harassed. They're not cats and dogs that have evolved to live with humans. They're wild animals. Now granted, some reptiles do seem to genuinely enjoy human interaction, but when it comes to amphibians, humans have oils in our skins that with prolonged handling can hurt the sensitive skin of these creatures. That's why you should have wet hands if you plan on picking up one of these guys. However, keeping animals in a terrarium allows you to appreciate them in a natural setting without stressing them out. I know people say something is so boring that they'd rather watch grass grow, but here's the thing. Actually watching plants grow is so exciting. To see them open up and to watch the environment develop and watch these little creatures live within it, it's super rewarding. It's like having my own miniature forest, and I feel good knowing that these animals can live comfortably within it. It's why I like gardening, and it's why I enjoy making terrariums.